Hey my souls, and welcome to this video about minimal practices that you can do if you are feeling kind of out of sorts. Maybe you are depressed, maybe you can't go outside, maybe you just don't feel connected. And all of this came to me as the new year was starting, and once again I set the goal of celebrating every single Sabbat and every single Esbat. Esbats are the full moons, but I also celebrate the new moons. I mean, celebrate is kind of a too much term, but you know what I mean. I do something consciously for the full moons and the new moons and the 8 Sabbats. So the thing is that whenever I start the year like that, I already know that there are going to be days where I just don't feel up to it. I don't feel up to celebrating or cooking something special or sitting down and having a 2-hour tarot session, but at the same time I still want to do something small so that I can say, okay, I kind of sat with the energy of this moon or of this Sabbat without completely skipping it and completely flaking out on my spiritual practice, basically. So I think this specifically applies to people who have issues with low moods, low motivation. You have maybe bouts of feeling very disconnected at times, and you just don't want to sit down and do something spiritual. At least that's how it is for me sometimes when I'm in my low moments. And still keeping the connection to your practice, to the universe, to the moon, to the Sabbats, to the seasons is very essential for my mental health. So I kind of try to push myself to do at least a little something. And that is why I kind of put together a toolbox for myself, or even a list of little minimalist activities that I can do. And these activities, they can become the entryway into something bigger. And I just want to share these practices with you so that maybe you can either make your own little toolbox, your own little list of low effort but high effect spiritual practices for new moons, full moons, and Sabbats. And yes, that is basically the structure of this video. I will go through all of the things that I have come up with that I like to do if I don't really feel like doing anything spiritual for those 3 categories: full moon, new moon, and Sabbats, I'm sorry. So the important thing is that the practices I share here do not include like 2 hours of solitude and reflection. They can evolve into that, but they are not that inherently. So these are just suggestions. Always think about what sounds right to you, what your practice sort of is at its core, and what's going to feel like a good thing for you to make a little bit of a connection to the full moon, new moon, or a certain Sabbat. So the important thing for me is that I ask myself to try, not to perform, because witchcraft and sorcery are not a performance. They are much more trial and error. And if I try something and it evolves into something bigger, great, but it doesn't have to. And that is basically at the core of this video, the core message. Try, do not perform. Okay. So let us first start with the new moon practices that are low effort but high impact, possibly for your spiritual well-being and your spiritual life. Now, new moons or dark moons are a time of reflection. They are a time of not necessarily rest, but definitely a time of withdrawal, where a lot of things that may have come up during the waning phase that precedes the new moon are showing full force. They are showing up to you, and you have to decide whether you deal with them or you try to ignore them. New moons or dark moons are definitely the time to engage with these feelings, with the inner knowing that you may have about what is wrong, what needs to go, and what you want to build. And depending on whether you give yourself the time to reflect, you can make a lot of changes. You can plant a lot of seeds that can grow during the waxing season of the moon that comes after the dark moon. So essentially, new moons can also come with physical pains. It can come with mental issues that may relate to things that you're trying to suppress. At least that is how I see them a lot. And anything that you try to shove down and keep down is going to be politely or impolitely asking to be examined by you. So the practices that I suggest. One thing that I like to do is a very, very simple journaling exercise. This may require some thinking, so it's not the lowest effort in this whole batch of new moon tricks, but maybe it resonates with you. So basically, you can write down one thing you want to stop doing, one thing you want to start doing, and one thing you want to continue doing. So it has these three aspects of releasing, of praising yourself for what you've been doing right, and of creating new ground for new seeds to grow. So it's very simple. You probably already have a pretty good idea of what these three things are when you sit down. But if you don't, if your mind is just foggy and empty and you don't feel like doing anything, connecting to anything, then I would suggest for the dark moon to at least sit with it. You could do this outside. If it's really cold or you are physically unable to go outside, then simply sit inside and take a moment to sit in the darkness, especially because it is called the dark moon. It is related to darkness. And just take a minute to feel through your emotions rather than pushing them down. And this can be 5 minutes. You don't have to do anything else. Even if you just do 5 minutes, at least you have done something. When you're really into it and you're feeling good on a day where you are planning your new moon, then you could also write a mantra. You can write this mantra on the new moon, of course, but that is also a lot of effort for some of us. So you might want to just prepare it. So something like, I wrote something down. I plant the seed to grow in the depth of my experience. You could say that. That could be your new moon mantra, so you don't have to overthink it once the new moon actually comes. You sit down, you say the mantra however many times you feel like it, and then you have a sort of connection, you know? You are basically laying the groundwork for something deeper. If it doesn't go deeper, as I've said multiple times, that is fine. It doesn't have to, but at least you've tried, you know? You've tried. You didn't perform, you've tried. It's about trying. I've said that word like 5 times now. Now let's move on to the full moon. The full moon, of course, is the completion of a cycle, not just for the moon itself, but also for you, which means that we are very often energized by all of the experiences and all of the things that have come our way during the waxing phase of the moon that precedes the full moon. And all of these impressions and ideas are kind of coming to a head, which means that this is a time to ground yourself, to sit down and to really think about what has occurred and what you might want to take into the next period or not take into the next period of the moon. Now, the thing is, sometimes the whole logic of waxing energy and of being at the peak of an energy is completely counter to my mental state. Just because it's the full moon, I'm not going to feel like a bundle of energy and happiness because that's just not how life works all the time, which means that the practices that I suggest here, I try to keep, again, very simple and very not so focused on, okay, it's the full moon, you have to do this and this and this and this, because the more pressure there is, the more I find I will not do something. So especially if we don't feel so connected to that intense energy of the full moon, it is especially important to kind of give ourselves credit for what happened before in the waxing phase of the moon that preceded the full moon. The most simple practice that I would suggest is to create some moon water, which means that you just take a glass bottle, you put it outside. You've probably heard this a billion times if you have looked into moon practice. You just put the bottle outside and let it be charged by the full moon. You can link this to an intention, or you can just regard this water as a magical tool that you can use in the next 2 weeks because it is charged with that full moon power. So if you feel more full moony, more energized, more open to appreciating what is around you and creating something new, then the moon water will come in handy. So it's kind of like, if you can't do it under the full moon, at least you have the water, and whenever you step into your power and your energy again, use that water. You can drink it, you can mix it in with your coffee, with your tea. You can also spray it. If you have a spray bottle, spray it on yourself, your face, yourself. Or you can spray it on your plants if you feel like that. So yes, that is definitely a good way to kind of carry the full moon energy with you during the waning phase. Now, a good old moon staring session or a meditation, once again, sitting in the dark or even the light, outside, inside. If you cannot see the moon, you can visualize the moon. And again, just turning off your phone for 5 minutes, putting on some nice music, and just, pushing yourself to do those 5 minutes. That's really important, at least in my personal experience and in my practice, because if I do nothing, I will feel worse than if I have literally invested 5 minutes and not more of my time to kind of connect. Now, again, if you want to reflect a little more, you could write down one thing that you have accomplished or that you feel grateful for that happened during the waxing phase. And you can also write one thing that you want to release and not take into the waning phase that comes after this full moon, because the waning phase is going to be a little more chill. You're going to feel a little more restful maybe, and that is why releasing a heavy burden, or at least a teensy burden also, can be very helpful. So simply burning the note that you wrote, the thing that you want to release on. Wait, did that make grammatical sense? Anyways, you write it on a piece of paper and you burn it. It's very simple. It's also great, one person on Instagram suggested this, to light a candle, say some things that you are grateful for, and then just sit in silence in the darkness, maybe light some incense, or if you're like me and you can't really take the smell of incense, you could light some white sage or any other smell that you like. And another thing that I forgot for the new moon, even something small, someone suggested this on Instagram when I asked there as well, is to just clean the area in front of your door or on the inside of your door or the outside of your door, to just kind of make a nice pathway for the energy to go through. And just spend 10 minutes cleaning that and you might already feel better. And this isn't necessarily a spiritual thing, but at the same time it is. It's one of those everyday magic sort of things that informs your day and your life with magic without you necessarily noticing, if you know what I mean. It will have an effect on your mental health and on your magical and spiritual health if you keep one little area clean or clean it and spend 10 minutes cleaning it. Another thing that someone suggested on Instagram when I asked is to just replace or play with your crystals. For the full moon, many people like to place their crystals outside. Personally, I do not have a huge windowsill. I don't want to leave my crystals outside. So generally, I just leave them where they are. But kind of playing with them, engaging with them, and just letting the full moon energy flow into them through you is also a great idea. You don't have to do any journaling for that. You don't have to do any huge ritual thing. Just kind of look at your crystals, move them around, and see where you get to with that. Now let's talk about the Sabbats. There are 8 of them in a year, many celebrations, and they are basically kind of the celebrations that lock you into the peak of the energy of that specific season or that specific time of the year. and they are a bigger arch than the full moons and the new moons. They just kind of span a whole month or span a whole season generally, or 2 months. So maneuvering these energies when we feel disconnected or we are physically unable to go outside can be kind of rough, because we might feel lonely, we might be in a low mood, or when it all feels like a big mess and you don't quite know what to do for this Sabbat, I like to have some minimal ideas that I can engage with and that kind of tune me into the energy, even if I am not in the mood to research it a whole bunch. So because the Sabbat energies are very specific, there is no blanket practice that you can employ, that you can do and kind of check every Sabbat off of your to-do list, so to speak. Of course, you can always light a candle, you can always sit in meditation, but what I like to do is to either go outside if I am able to or willing to, and feel the nature, feel what is happening, what vibrations are going on, what the trees are doing, what the birds are doing, which is of course especially powerful in spring, which is coming up now, and I'm really looking forward to that. So just tuning into the energy that way. If you are unable to do that, then by all means search for a background noise of nature on YouTube, play that, and imagine kind of astral travel or fantasy travel to a place that has the energy of that Sabbat. For example, if I would want to celebrate Litha, I might go and put on some swamp noises, because swamp noises are kind of like that, warm summer night feeling to me. Or you could put on a river noise so you feel like you're in a forest. Or any sort of bird song really is great for any of the spring Sabbats. So just find out what noises you might associate with the current season and get those noises into your ears by either going outside or by looking them up on YouTube and playing with them that way. If you are up for some light reading, you could also look up the Sabbat on Wikipedia. And I'm saying Wikipedia because that is the lowest effort thing for most people. Of course, you can look through the Google results, see if anything else speaks to you, see if any other website sounds interesting, or you can consult one of the beginner books that you have. But the important thing is, don't read all of it. If you already know that you're kind of low energy, you don't want to tell yourself to look it up in 6 different books. Just chill out, read one little paragraph about it, and then write down one word that stuck out to you or one sentence that resonated with you, and kind of work with that. If that's too ambitious, you can also just draw one tarot card, or maybe even do like a random word generator online, so you have like one word that you can tie to the Sabbat. And if it is a summer Sabbat and the random word that you get is icicle, then you will be surprised what comes up if you actually work with it. At first, it may sound completely unrelated, but the more you kind of ease into it and think about it, I think it's going to be a very interesting experience to journal about icicles in the summer, for example. Another thing that I like to do that is obviously not going to work for everybody is to think about what video games represent that specific time period, that specific season or Sabbat to me, and go and play them. For example, for summer Sabbats, if I really want to soak in that summer energy, I might pop in something like The Witcher 3, where you have a very wonderful expansion pack called Wine and Blood, I think that's right. And you're basically in France. It's not real France, it's not called France, but it is this wonderful kind of Italian or French vibe that this landscape has, and just riding along in it, soaking in the sun virtually is very, very fun for me, and it kind of connects me to the season. I know that sounds totally strange to some people, but if you are into video games, you'll know what I mean. Now, if you want a mantra for the Sabbats, you can also say a blanket statement like, I connect to the energies of the season and I am open to messages from the universe, or to messages from spirit, to messages from my goddesses, whatever theological construct you work with. You can insert that here and just say that, and it will already have an effect on you, especially if you sit in meditation or are journaling. Okay, my loves, that was basically it. Those were my small practices for full moons, new moons, and the Sabbats. I hope that this helped you, and don't forget to always forgive yourself if you don't go as deep as you planned to go, or if you don't do anything at all, it's okay too. But having like this little spark of motivation and at least investing 5 minutes in your spiritual and mental health can go a long way, because it can be an entryway into something deeper if you let it. Or you can just go back to watching TV after you do the 5-minute exercises or something, whatever you feel is best for you. So yes, I am very much looking forward to all of the Sabbats and all of the moons, and I hope that I can keep track of all of them and work with all of them this year and just take a minute to tune into these energies. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you have any minimal practices in the comments below. I know these differ greatly for a lot of people depending on what framework you work with or what energies you like to work with, what you believe in. If you want to share below what you love to do as a very teensy piece of your spiritual practice that you can always just jam in if you feel like not doing anything, then yes, share it below. Maybe it will help someone else. And I love you all. I'll see you next time. Have fun.